Thank you. This morning it was already 90 degrees when we left Fort Myers, so this is pleasant. I have to apologize because we actually brought our little dog here. We had planned on leaving our dog in Providence with my brother, who, for a family illness, had to leave, and so we did bring her, but I want to assure you she's not one who creates allergies. She's hyperallergenic and doesn't shed. And the story of our family is that I shed more than the dog, which is, as you can tell, quite clear. Jim Donovan does not have that problem. I've come to the conclusion that when you get old, you can actually talk more about history. People listen. And so for all of us who are old, you'll understand that. And for the young students, you'll hopefully appreciate that. So I'm going to give you 3 dates, and I will be brief. By the way, when John Thornburg asked me to make some remarks, I said, how much time do I have? He said, well, you're from Medford, I'll give you 30 minutes. Since John's not here, I'm taking 60. 1964, 1968, 2001. Remember those 3 dates? I'm going to ask you folks that in a little bit. So in 1964, Sister Lewis at the Immaculate Conception School asked several students to go down to the boiler room and to help out as custodians. That was the first time I met someone named Donovan. That was Jim's father. 61 years ago, I met the Donovan family. I always remembered Mr. Donovan. And one would ask, why would a young kid who was in the 3rd or 4th grade, the Immaculate Conception, remember Mr. Donovan? If you've met Jim Donovan, you'd understand why you wouldn't forget his father. 1968. Malden Catholic was leaving Highland Ave. I told the students on our tour today, in those days we used to have lunch on the parking lot. The school was leaving Highland. Tuition was $50 at that time. Not a problem for most of us, but a stretch. When we moved to this beautiful campus that year, tuition jumped to $500. There were many, many families, including mine, that could not afford that. So we withdrew from Malden Catholic painfully. I received a call from Brother Robertus, along with Bob Bucchino, who, by the way, you all know. He was my classmate. He doesn't look as old as I am, but he is. And Brother Robertus said to me at that time, we don't have scholarship money at Malden Catholic, but we're going to create sort of a scholarship and a work program, and we're going to ask you to work with a Brother Plunkett, and we'll be able to have you work off your tuition. So for 3 years, Bob Bucchino and I and 2 other students whose names I don't remember worked in this building, cleaning the floors, washing the bathrooms, and making this school clean for our fellow students. 2001, I came to the board. I met a guy named Jim Donovan. And a lot of memories flooded me, and I said, boy, you know, I've known him before. And quickly we both realized that I had met his father in 1963. It's a long time. The thought process about establishing a scholarship in Jim Donovan's name was very clear to Natalia and I. We had talked about it for a long time with John. John and Kim were kind enough to visit us in Fort Myers. We've had them several times before the hurricane. Not during the hurricane, because our house was swallowed up by the ocean, but since the hurricane. And we were speaking a little bit about that. And I was telling John a little bit about my history, and I mentioned to him that not only was that work program for me quite impressive and important, but also I met a gentleman named Brother Plunkett Dory. And those of us that are old enough would remember that Brother Plunkett opened this building and kept this building clean for a lot of years. And so the experience I had at this school wasn't simply about working. It was about meeting a Severian brother who taught us what Brother Tom and Brother Larry and so many other brothers before had been so instrumental in our lives. So the idea of the scholarship is the knowledge that there's somebody in that building today who's another Brother Plunkett. When John and Kim and I and Natalia finished our dinner, I sat next to John and I said, and I'll conclude with this. I said, John, do you want to know why I really wanted to do this? I said, because the day's going to come when Jim and I are long gone, and some young student is going to go home and say, hey, I just got the Jim Donovan scholarship. And that student should say to his mother or father, or her mother or father, who was Jim Donovan? And this is what I want. This is what I hope for. Not that that parent's going to say, boy, Jim led this school through a very important time, transformation, where he did a turnaround, where it was bumpy, where there wasn't the enrollment we wanted. He brought us to co-division. He built buildings. He gave his time, talent, and treasure. He built leadership teams. He carried us on his back. I said, I don't expect them to say that. What I really want them to say is that in our life, we hope to make a small difference in the lives we touch. But Jim Donovan was a guy who, unlike most of us, made a huge difference in a whole bunch of lives, and a school beyond. And what I really hope at the end, they say, you know, not only did he do that, but Jim Donovan did it right and he did it well. Jimmy.